I want to talk to you. Put you on the mountain. Looking for the mountain. I'm like, where is it at? I've gotten so used to, you know. So Graham Elwood, another gentleman we're talking about, the smear Elizabeth Warren did on Bernie Sanders, uh, basically using sexism to say that he's a sexist. That he said this thing that's improper, so he shouldn't run. He shouldn't be the, and I know what it is. Like someone said, I think it was Majority Report put the point out there that this is just the last ditch effort. This is the last ditch effort of Elizabeth Warren. That may be true. I believe that to be the truth. I do believe that to be true. But more importantly, I said it before, if this is all you've got on Bernie, this has reinvigorated my respect for him because I knew that something was coming. It's kind of like back in the day how they, used the gay thing. I knew this was coming. I knew that eventually they try to pull something on him or find something on him. That was coming. It's just like Ron Paul years ago. He was running for president and they were like, oh, well, Ron Paul said this years ago. Well, no, he didn't say it, I'm sorry. There was a thing he had up where I think it was a newsletter and people put some stuff on there. It wasn't really racist, but it was just like angry white men stuff. And I hurt Ron Paul with it, This is kind of similar to that. This is basically like, this is all you've got. Like, they didn't have anything of Ron Paul himself using the N-word. I don't think it was N-word stuff, but it was just, angry white man stuff. Which, looking at everything Trump has done, once again, is this really all you've got? It's really all, like you spent all this money looking at this man's background, and all you can find is some maybe slightly racist stuff from his newsletter from like 2 decades ago. What I'm going with this is Graham Elwood, and this is why I like him. I've said on earlier videos about how he's a comedian, and I don't really go for that comedian stuff, and I'm a serious person. I meant that. I'm a serious person. I'm not a really big comedian guy. Some folks probably think I'm too serious. Whatever. That's they're free to have their opinion. I'm just not a really big, silly, ha-ha, hee-hee guy. And to me, I don't really like his humor all the time. I don't. He's a healthy guy like I am, though. He's out there in California. He's a comedian. He travels around telling jokes and doing shows. But he went in on how she used the thing. He said that, liberals have got to stand up, and people of color, women have to stand up and speak out against this, or else it could hurt him. And he was talking when people who have come out and spoke, the black atheists think, I've heard of him, I don't follow him. He's come out and said, what do you know about Trump? I've been dealing with Trump for a while. He was talking about, he mentioned Bush. And I don't like to do that because I like to keep them separate. Trump is not Bush and Bush is not Trump. I think Trump is a dominionist. I think that there's a movie came out on Lifetime. I don't remember what it's called. I watched it when I was real young. In the movie, women were it was like a Nazi type world, basically. It was white men ran the world. There were no people of color. It was like white women, they were like getting abused and beaten, and I don't know what you call it. But anyway, I think it was it was kind of like Hunger Games before Hunger Games came out, because you had very poor, but you had also very rich people, and the women were gay because they hated men. They were being abused. And at the end of the movie, they showed some black men on a truck, like a military truck, and they were being beaten and stuff and pushed out of the truck, kind of like slaves in essence. That to me is Trump's vision of the future. That's what I see. If you want to know it, that's my idea of Trump and everything he stands for. I don't think that's what George Bush was. And it's not because I like George Bush, but it's because I want people to understand where I'm coming from and understand what we're facing. I think, Everybody knows about Bush and the money him and Cheney made and all. I'm not going into that here. But I don't. Anyway, so there were people speaking out. They were talking about, I guess, the View. I don't watch that show. The View came out on Bernie says, I don't care what the View thinks. I watched them sometimes. I think they had Ron Paul on there years ago, which was interesting, you know. But I don't watch the View. I don't really care what they think. I think a lot of stupid shit. But I know that that's for white housewives to watch when their husbands are away. I get it. That's what they want to watch on TV. That's cool. But they came after him. They attacked him and stuff. They said stuff about him. Let's make this clear. Graham Elwood spoke about it. That there's got to be a broader group of people out there speaking out against these statements that Elizabeth Warren made against Bernie Sanders. A lot of conservatives talk about how, we're, the left is trying to destroy language, and the left, they make everything where, you can't say that. And I'll admit, you've got some liberals that go way too far. I think when I hear people say stuff like that, it's dumb. It's surely more about them to think that just because we're not supporting a war that's gone on for 10 years based off a lie, that doesn't mean that I want these people out here saying that you can't use the word Mexican or you can't, listen, I don't know anybody that thinks like that. This stuff that Alex Jones puts out there about them putting drag queens to read to kids and stuff, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. And I know what this is, like I told you, they have to always create outrage. So they take the most extreme stuff that the left is up to, and then they say, oh, see, look what the left is. They want to, legalize pedophilia, legalize that, when there's nobody that I know that's talking about that. Nobody. See, it's all about distracting from the real discussions that we're having about climate change, about Medicare for all, about free colleges, about why are we still why are we getting these endless wars? Why haven't we stopped? And why are we getting ready to start another war? They're not interested in talking about that. They want to set up a false straw man about us legalizing pedophilia and legalizing hard drugs. And all this, I don't know anybody that thinks like this. I don't know anybody that votes for anything like that. We got black men get killed in their houses because some fucking bitch ass cop wants to bust in and murder them, and then the police department leaks the evidence and gets her 15 years. That's what we're talking about. Do I have to explain this to you? We had a woman get killed in her apartment by some thug ass cop sneaking around in the backyard shooting through the window. That's what we're protesting about. We're not talking about some fucking drag queens reading at a library. I don't know what the interest is. I don't know what the interest conservatives have in gays and drag queens. I don't know what that is, but there's something there because they talk a whole lot about it. It's not like I do. They talk a whole lot about gay people. I'm just saying. It seems to be a fascination there. I will say this as well. I think that some of that, like I said, making us about they can't, you can't use words. I think some of that is manufactured. Because I was reading today about liberal gun owners, and I'm one of them. I'm not in a group. If I ever got in a group, I'd be very careful. One thing I've learned over the last couple of years is you have a lot of government infiltration, and you have a lot of government infiltration of groups that are not terroristic in nature, and they try to make them terroristic. That's one thing I learned back during George Bush. That's one thing I learned about. And Amnesty International did a thing on that. There's a lot of groups that are not violent, and the feds get in there and they try to make them violent. Remember the Huddetry militia? Remember that? And the judge dropped all charges because the judge is like, there's no evidence they were doing anything wrong. And you had there were these boys in Miami. I think they had went to prison, and the feds got them in there and were trying to talk them into committing acts of violence. You know what I mean? All that stuff. They were like retarded, man. These kids were like retarded, basically. And they were trying to get them to go out here and commit acts of violence. This is real. This is very real stuff. This is not imaginary. So I would be very careful, and I'd say to anybody who's interested in joining a gun group or a political group, be very careful. Alex Jones actually spoke on that years ago. He was like, if you're going to do something illegal, you don't tell anybody. He was talking about how, they're always, I think it was one of those Ask Alex sessions when he had that girl working for him. Yeah, it was Ask Alex. And he was talking about how you got these groups. They're like, oh, let's go attack the courthouse. They're advocating to do violence, and they're always trying to push the discussion towards violence. I thought that was funny because look at what these Caucasians did with the Black Panthers and Fred Hampton. Look at the murders they did back in the day. And so now that the shoe is on the other foot and white men are losing power, they're basically saying, yeah, we know about this stuff. We've got to watch out for it because our ancestors done it. I find that interesting. That's why I go on InfoWars sometimes. It's interesting to see how now that white people don't have the power they once had, I'm not talking about straight power. I'm talking about power in regards to keeping blacks in control and all that. They're acknowledging this and that. You have to read it. It's kind of interesting to see them acknowledge these things, but they're not like, well, this is wrong. They're like, well, we know they did this. We know they do this. That's interesting to me. But I'll leave it at that. Peace out.